As a writer, one of the main issues I struggle with is productivity. Keeping my productivity going has been a struggle, especially in recent years after I stopped like being the actual writer doing the actual work. So my productivity has really dipped, but even it's not just about the recent periods. Typically, just for me as a writer, keeping my productivity going has been a main issue. Sometimes I'm seated at my desk for hours without getting anything done at all, without even typing a single word, because just getting started, sometimes it's super hard. And it's sometimes about what we call writer's block, the inability to get anything done, the inability to start, to just get the first sentence written down. So productivity for me has been a main issue. Sometimes it's very hard to even concentrate. Sometimes my brain is just not operational. It's like I'm clogged and I'm unable to think. And even, sometimes I could be having a project that I need to do and maybe I have a couple of days to do it. But I will not even start until it's like the final few hours. That is when like my brain sort of just works and I start working. I've tried different tricks to work around that. Sometimes even, trying to make my work desk interesting. Like I've been working on a project to make the workspace a little bit interesting. Like I'm working on a project to bring in some interesting monitors, interesting keyboards, maybe even the music, the environment, just making it a little bit interesting so that it's not boring. But even then, sometimes if you have all that, it's still not easy, because those things will just excite you for the first few days. After that, you still want more. You still want to, get a new equipment, a new electronic, just put there on the desk so that the environment is sort of just interesting. And sometimes I try to work at night. I find sometimes working at night, more productive. I don't know. Maybe it's because of the quiet, the cold. I don't know. I don't understand, because even during the day, it's not like there are a lot of distractions in the house. But I just find sometimes working at night to be, more fruitful. I get a lot covered in a short time at night. So usually you'll find me at night working, not because I was busy throughout the day, because the whole day I was just seated at my desk doing nothing. And sometimes playing Candy Crush or Subway Surf doesn't even help, because you get lost in it again and you lose a lot of time that you should, be working on a project. So yeah, that for me has been a big issue, getting things done. It's just, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to improve my productivity. Sometimes I feel like I work better under pressure, so that when I have a project that is due in 4 days, I'll probably have to wait until it's few hours to the deadline. That is when my brain sort of just comes and I'm super productive. I get a lot covered. But throughout the day, throughout the week, the whole period, getting things done is becoming super, super hard. Yeah, another trick that I've been using is also going out, like going to a restaurant and working from there, because at least when I'm there, I know I will focus, because I can't just be there and seated. But even then, still I struggle to get my productivity going. So I've been looking for different strategies, different tips to sort of just, improve my productivity so that I could be doing more in a short time. The other challenge I also face is working with difficult clients. We have clients with very unrealistic demands. They want you to do something that is completely out of the scope of what they have paid you to do. And in my experience, I've learned that clients that pay badly, when you're on a lipa vibaya, those are the ones that are very, very demanding. They have a lot of unrealistic expectations, unrealistic demands. They want you to do a lot of things. They even want you to do extra, on top of what you did. They feel like they can change the instructions midway and you'll just still like do it with the initial price. So yeah, I've learned that if a client is, not willing to pay you for the worth, the actual value of what you're doing, usually they'll turn out to be very troublesome. So sometimes I always avoid clients who, from the get-go, you can just see they don't really value what you do, because I have clients who feel like writing is all about just copying and pasting, maybe just tweaking a few words here and there, but writing is actually a lot. It's a lot more than that. Even just knowing the keywords to search on the search engine, it can even take you several hours to just figure out what to actually search. So it's not as easy as just, copying something or paraphrasing something. There's a lot of work that actually goes into writing a good paper. And some clients don't appreciate that. The other clients we also interact with sometimes that are difficult are those that don't want to pay. And, maybe you've done an assignment, you've done a paper project, and they don't want to pay either for reasons like they are broke, or they just try to find a problem with the project so that they would delay paying you. So we have such kind of clients. Sometimes it's very hard dealing with them. You're trying to balance being professional, but at the same time you're human. You feel angered, you feel frustrated. So that is also another issue that personally I've had to deal with. The other thing is also dealing with writers from hell. As an employer, sometimes, in most cases really, I have to assign, these jobs to people that we work with. These are now the writers that I work with. And sometimes you give a writer and they just go mute. They don't respond. They don't tell you what is happening. They just, switch off their phones, and that is just right about the time when the job is actually becoming due. I've had cases of writers saying that they have been arrested. The other one was telling me they had some, attacks. Yeah, and sometimes trying to understand, but I also know I was a writer before. Sometimes I used to lie. And sometimes kuna zile projects zenye ni continuing, like the first bit ni writer fulani alifanya. So for consistency inafaa to the same writer endeleshe, and this writer is not responsive, ashiki simu, or amekughost, so yeah, that sometimes it's stressful. So that is sometimes when I have to now sit down and decide to do it myself, because you realize reassigning maybe it may even take longer for another writer to now get it going. Yeah, sometimes unakosa hadi writer. Unapata writer wako wote yuko available, ama wanasema hawezani na hiyo task. So that is a challenge we also have to deal with. Inafaa saa zingine pia ukuwe fiti. That's why I always say, if you are looking into venturing into this industry and you hope to become an employer, it is very important pia we mwenyewe ujue kufanya some of the tasks, because itakuja time writer wataki kufanya ama yuko available. And I have seen this as a trend. Around the time unawalipa, most of them don't work the next day. So that is a challenge. That's why sometimes have to spread out so that not all of them are being paid at the same time. So sometimes I have to balance that, juu ukiwalipa wote tarehe 10, tarehe 11, 12, 13, most of them will not be working. It just happens. Maybe wameenda kupumzisha akili, or wengine wameenda kufanya shopping because now they have the money. Yeah, so it's stressful, having to manage difficult clients on one hand, and on the other side, maybe you are dealing with also writers who are also stressful. Either they are not doing the jobs on time, or they are doing shoddy work, and it takes a lot of time to go back and revise. Sometimes it's hard. You'd rather just say easy rather than do it the wrong way, and then we just have to be back and forth trying to revise and improve it. The other challenge that I've also faced is having to explain to my folks what I do. As a writer, most people don't really understand what writing is all about. They don't even have the smallest clues of what writing is. So sometimes when you're in a family gathering and they ask you, hey, what do you do these days? You tell them you do writing. Not most of them get it. Even my parents, they don't really understand what I do. Wanajua tu na wakianga wazungu. But that's not the whole thing. I even work for Kenyans. I have many clients from Kenya and Africa generally. So having to explain myself what I do, I find it challenging, So this day, let's say I'm a content creator, but even being a content creator itself, many people don't understand what that means, and especially our parents and the older people in our lives, hawaelewi writing ni nini. Pia kuna a lot of suspicion around writing. The minute mtu unafanya writing, they already start having these perceptions. I've also had this, like, people think nimewekwa. Okay, kuwekwa si vibaya, but I mean, just because I spend most of my time in the house, that doesn't mean I don't work. Wewe kama unakuamka kila siku ndio uende job, good for you. Mimi nimepata a way of making money, so it doesn't mean that nimewekwa or somebody else is paying my bills. Dealing with that and having to explain yourself, sometimes it's frustrating because people don't understand. And even for those who have slight ideas about what writing is, in most cases they have this a negative perspective about it. They think it is forex. Not that forex is bad, but we all know that forex sometimes inakuanga associated with a lot of how do I call it, conmanship. Kuna a lot of wizi, kugongwa na kuoshwa. So the minute unasema unafanya writing, people already start thinking, oh, okay. So sometimes that is for me, that is a bit challenging. The biggest issue really is the social part. As a writer, you don't really have time to mingle. You don't really have time to socialize because most of the times you're indoors and you need a quiet place to concentrate. So again, you can't be working and socializing at the same time. It can't work. It's not like a typical job ya mjengo. Mimi nimefanya hadi mjengo, and mjengo, hard as it might be, it's usually sometimes fun because you interact, ukibeba matofali, ukibeba block, unapiga story na siku inasonga. But when you're writing, sometimes it's very quiet. There's nobody to talk to. Sometimes you just have to start singing, so that at least mdomo isikuwe na, So I feel socially it's hard, especially if you like hanging out with people. It's hard socially because in most cases you are alone, trying to figure out things, trying to Google, trying to do research, and you can lose out a lot on the social part. Because most of the clients I have, we've never met, we just talk on the phone. And even the writers I've worked with, some of them, like, tumework pamoja for years, but we've never met really, so we can't really say we are friends, or, it's more like, it's your colleague, it's your client, but it's not the typical sense of it. So if you were to have like a harambe or an event like a wedding, sometimes you're like, okay, so nani anakam? The other challenge is back pain, and I've really had to deal with this the hard way. Last year, I was in a bad shape. My back, I had spinal pains, and it got really bad. I even got what we call sciatica or sciatica, I don't know. Yeah, where, like miguu inauma, ile bad, like literally bad. You can't even sit, even sitting, even today, like I can't sit down for more than an hour, inaanza kuchoma the lower part. Sometimes you feel like a very deep bone like pain, kwa bone ndani, kwa mgongo. Tumepata hizi story zote, buy orthopedic chair, orthopedic mattress. I don't think they really help. I mean, at the end of the day, I think the posture you're sitting, you just have to be very mindful of it. So for me, by the way, that is my biggest issue out of the whole thing, because my back has never been the same. Like, I can't sit for long. And sometimes even waking up in the morning, the back is very painful. Yeah, physiotherapy ilisaidia kidogo, but at the end of the day, I think it's just modifying your lifestyle so that you don't sit for too long, Again, you can't walk for too long because put pressure on some nerves, There's a bunch of things. I think some spine disc ilibulge ama ilisonga, so ikibulge ama ilisonga, whatever, put pressure on the sciatic nerve that is supposed to like serve miguu. So because of that, you feel a pinching pain running throughout either the left foot, sometimes the left leg, or the right one, and sometimes it gets pretty bad. You can't sleep. You use some drugs that sometimes they give you dizziness, you can't concentrate and all of that. So yeah, the health part of it is, for me, I would say, the biggest downside, because if you're always seated typing, that can really put a lot of strain on your back. So they suggest you're supposed to like sit like this. I've had doctors saying you to sit like this, but really, how can you type like this? I mean, that is almost impractical. Yeah. But anyway, just about being mindful of your posture, especially when you are typing for too long, and also like having reminders to, sit and stretch after every few minutes of working, getting a standing desk, a desk that you can like, inaweza inuka ama ishuke, thing that can help, but still, even typing while standing is not easy. It's just good in theory, but when you're actually doing it, you typing while standing, you can only type so much. A whole lot goes into like trying to make adjustments to your work life, to your social life, and just generally everything, so that at least at the end of the day, bado unaishi tu a normal life like everybody else. Let me know in the comments, you writers, ni challenges gani nyinyi mnapitia, like what is the most difficult thing that you've had to go through as a writer. Now, how have you been able to to manage it? I know many people, there might be feelings, the back pains and everything. I would really like to know, like, how do you guys do it? How do you manage that socially? How do you also manage your social life, given that being a writer, lazima ukuwe na lapi like almost every other time? In the comments, how you guys feel about being a writer and everything. Cheers.